All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of Owning Your Sexual Self. We have a very fun guest on today. Some of you are probably looking already at the title of this episode and thinking, ooh, that's not for me, but I hope you're here with an open mind and a non-judgmental mind, because that is so important when it comes to owning your sexual self. I mean, the name of the podcast, right? So I have on today with me Samantha McIntosh. Welcome, Sam.
Hello.
So excited. We're doing this in person, which I rarely get to do because a lot of times guests are from all over the world. So it's really cool to have a fellow sex coach and intimacy coach and pleasure coach, just here in
just down the
living
road.
room. Yeah. And we're recording in the living room. I don't know if you watch this on YouTube or not, but we are currently without power and still making this happen. So I feel, it's meant to be. We are dedicated to making this episode happen.
Well, and we've been talking about this episode for years.
Literally years. Yeah.
And we've been talking about it. Not only we talked about it a few months ago, and I feel like the timing is just perfect because this summer has been a crazy journey for me in our our lifestyle journey. And so I think that the timing is perfect.
I'm excited. Yeah. And I remember when I very first asked you years ago, there was a lot of skepticism, maybe like some nervousness around people knowing or like really being out about it. And actually I'm thinking through like clients that I work with that are in E&M relationships, and same, it's like there's a part of them that almost like wants to keep it private. And we can get into that too, like when and how do you even like disclose, to people like friends and family and whatnot. And do you have to even, I don't just go and be like, hi, I'm Rachel, I'm in a monogamous relationship,
right?
So yeah, why do you, anyways. So tell us, Sam, like how did this even like become a thing for you and your husband?
Yeah, it really started with me wanting to explore my own sexuality. I was bi-curious, wasn't really sure if I was interested in women, had a few experiences, but really wanted to explore it further. And so we entered into the swinging lifestyle with the mindset of finding other women. And it slowly progressed to, having it mainly was other couples to begin with, and what you would consider a full swap, which is both couples in the same room swapping partners. And over time kind of progressed. We met friends that have been involved in swinging communities in the state and invited us to some events. We started going to hotel parties. And then over the last 4 years, it's really expanded to now into polyamory. And so it's just been an incredible growth journey for us that has, we were already strong when we started, but the strength of our relationship and our marriage is just, I could never imagine that we would be where we are today. But I know a large part of it is because of the ethical non-monogamy.
Yeah. Which, E&M, I'm glad you just said that, because some people are probably listening like, what the hell is that? So ethical non-monogamy, non-monogamish is another term I've heard. So however you want to define it. And when you said, and this is where I would like to start with this, like you said, your relationship, your marriage was already at a good place. And this is something that you decided to do to expand and like grow on that. It wasn't that you were in a place of like maybe like close to divorce or separation or something like that. Like you weren't in a bad place and then thinking, okay, let's now bring other people into it. So can you speak a little bit on that? Like why is it important to have that solid foundation with your partner before entering into something like this?
And I think that's where we touch on the ethical non-monogamy, right? It's both parties are entering in a consensual manner. We both have agreed. We both communicated boundaries, communicated interests. We make sure that any partners that we bring into our space are also doing it in an ethical way. And I totally forgot your question as I was saying that.
That's okay. Why is it so important? To have that foundation.
This isn't a way to save a struggling marriage, because communication and trust, that strong foundation is so important. If you're not able to communicate clearly with each other, it's going to be a shit show, to be quite honest. I joke that there's two types of people that enter, those that are trying to save a relationship and those that are trying to strengthen.
Mm-hmm.
The couples that I see that are successful with it are the ones trying to strengthen that relationship. You have to be able to be comfortable being vulnerable with each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we get into all of the nitty gritty details, you know, what we enjoy, what is triggering us, what is causing us, you know, to feel uncomfortable about a situation. And because of that, we've been able to strengthen the communication even more. The things I've learned about my partner over the last 4 years, I think some of those things were news to ourselves, like that we found out about ourselves as we were exploring.
Yeah. And that's such a great point too. It's because you don't know if you like something until you try it. So I think of the many conversations I have with people about anal sex, right? And immediately they're like, no, like this is not for me. But it's like, how do you even know if you haven't tried it? And it like, how do you know it's not your thing? How do you know it's not gonna be pleasurable to you? And you know, same instance with this. Like I've been curious and for a while now, like, and like trying out threesomes and going to sex parties, even if it's just to watch and like be a part of the energy. But yeah, there's still like that, like, ooh, like, I don't know, like, you know, like there's that fear behind it.
And I love that you mentioned that, because one of the rules that we have is I know that I'm not going to know how I'm going to feel about something until I'm in that moment. Right. You're familiar with human design. I know it's very much a part of my human design that I have to be like in that moment. So if there's something that one of us wants to try, for example, the first time that my husband spent the night overnight in a hotel room with another woman, he said, "Hey, I want to do this." And I said, "You know what? I have no reason to say no. I honestly don't know how I'm going to feel about it. But I want you to try it. And then we can talk about it when you come home." And that's kind of our rule. Like, as long as we're both comfortable, we try it. And then the next day or the next moment we talk about what feelings came up for both of us. Did he enjoy it? Did I enjoy it? I prepared myself. I invited friends over to have a bonfire that night because I knew I was going to be alone and I didn't know how I was going to feel. And so being aware enough of myself and what I needed to feel comfortable. And then the next day we talked about it and it became something that is now and is no longer a boundary for us. It's something that is an option. We've both gone out on solo dates. We've both had solo overnights. It's not something I necessarily enjoy, but it is something I do on occasion. My husband now has a girlfriend and other partners that he goes overnight with all the time. But to that point of, you never know until you try it.
Yeah. And it's so great too that you've created that container where it's, again, you both are open to it. You're both supporting each other's pleasure, each other's sexuality, and then creating that container to be able to talk about it afterwards. And I love that you said too, like you're taking ownership for your own shit, right? It's like, it's not that it's just like, "Ooh, I don't like this." Like it's a no, it's like you're talking through that. He's supporting you through that. And have you come across things that you have tried and then they have been a no for one of you?
I'm trying to think of any. And at this point, we've opened up. There really isn't much that we haven't at least come back to. But I can tell you that some of those conversations were far from fun, far from enjoyable, incredibly emotional, incredibly vulnerable, lots of hurt feelings. But the strength of our relationship and that determination that no matter what, we're going to get through this has really been like at the back of our mind. We're like, okay, this sucks, but we're going to get through it. We'll figure it out. And that's really how the summer has been. My husband asked earlier this year if we could explore polyamory, and he had a partner who he's been seeing on a regular basis that he asked, that he was interested in becoming her becoming his girlfriend, and said, "Okay, let's try it." It hasn't been an easy journey. I won't lie, but it has also been an incredibly the growth over the last few months because of it has been astronomical. Just that getting comfortable with our own feelings and honestly, even my own healing journey. A lot of the stuff that I was struggling with was from my own childhood trauma, my own inner child stuff, that it's really helped me work through those things. And by having a strong and supportive partner who really cares about me and puts my needs at the forefront and wants to help me through it, that's how we've survived it.
Yeah.
And we're probably in the best place we've ever been.
It's so nice to hear. And there's different ways of going about this. So in your relationship, do you use like the hierarchy system to where you and Mac are the priority and then everybody else is like,
yes.
So like your needs come before everyone.
And there's a lot of different views about it. A lot of people who are in polyamory will tell you that having that hierarchy is unethical, but really it comes down to what the couple wants. For me, I am very conscious about the role his partners play in his life. Yes, we are cohabitating, we are co-parents, we are financially dependent on each other, all different types of our relationship that make it so that our relationship has to come first, right? We've got kids, we're financially dependent, we live together, and those things make it so that no one else can come first right now. But I'm still very conscious of the feelings and emotions of his partners. When he has to cancel a date, I feel horrible, especially if it's because of me, but sometimes it has to happen. And his partner, so my metas is what they're called, we're all close friends. And the fact that I can reach out to them and say, I'm really sorry, I just really need him tonight. And they're like, no, at home comes first. But there are people who enter it without any sort of hierarchy. A lot of the times you'll find that it's people who are single on their own and have multiple partners. So they don't have that cohabitating, that co-parent stuff. It really depends on the different aspects of the relationship.
Yeah. And you mentioned like having kids. When or do you even disclose to your kids? Like, do your kids meet the other partners, and what does that look like? And how did you, as you said, like years ago, like doing something like this was way like a no for you. How did you then come to this point where you're at now, where you are open and sharing and, people know? Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned the kids, because we actually told our kids a couple of months ago. At first it was kind of, it's our relationship, it's our business, we don't need to share it, but it's so much a part of who we are now that our friends know, our family knows, whether they're not in some cases, but it's part of it is who you're comfortable with, right? The people you're surrounding yourself with, you trust and are comfortable around, and you want to be your full self with them. And with the kids, we have a 5-year-old and an 11-year-old. My 5-year-old probably doesn't really understand. My 11-year-old definitely does. And part of it was his girlfriend and her husband and their kids are around all the time. And we finally got to a place where we said, you know what, we just need to tell them. And these people are going to be around, and I want my husband to feel himself with his partners. I don't want him to have to hide something. And so he finally sat down with them, and I put it on him because it's his relationship. Right. And he's like, hey, daddy has a girlfriend. This is who it is. If you have any questions, we are open to it. Just let us know. And, mommy's okay with this. Mommy's welcome to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend if she's interested. It's mommy and daddy will always come first. We still love each other. Really taking the feelings of our kids into consideration. But the ability to be our full authentic selves, which is something that's so important to me, it was a really big driver for why we tell the people in our lives. Yeah. And we've spoken a lot about kind of your husband and what kind of is going on with his life. So I'd love to have you share a little bit, like what fun stuff do you get to do? So it's a funny place for me right now because I am very focused on my career. To be honest with you, having 2 kids, a full-time job, and starting my coaching business, like there just isn't time to build relationships outside of my marriage. But that doesn't mean I don't have fun. So we once or twice a year will go to hotel parties. There are a couple different communities in Michigan that are swinging events or hotel parties, sex parties. They're all different types. You can go to a sex party and not play with anyone else. It's not a requirement. In fact, the first party we went to, I think we played with each other back in our room by ourselves, but the rest of the party was just socializing and getting to know people. Now we go and we see who's going and we make plans and things like that. But we go to house parties and things like that. We'll go to people's houses. I've got a couple guys that when we're in the same place at the same time, we are comfortable and we have fun together. But for me, there's no obligations around it because I just don't have the capacity for it right now. But that's not to say that down the road, I wouldn't be interested in that.
Yeah. So for you, would you say it's just these like these in-person connections, you're not engaging in the sort of the aftermath of it, the emotional side of it, like the texting back and forth, like that side of it? Or is that
there is still that. And it kind of depends on the relationship. I have someone who I text with on a regular basis. But we actually only played together for the first time a couple of weeks ago. We've just been kind of building that relationship. For me, as I'm actually, one of the things I've learned about myself in this process is that not only am I bisexual, I am demisexual and sapiosexual. So demi meaning that, I enjoy having sex. It's sometimes I can give or take it, but when I'm comfortable with someone, I do truly enjoy it. And the sapio is, I like somebody who can stimulate my mind as well as my clit. So if you can have an intelligent conversation with me, if you can make me think, if you can, build that relationship with me, it's going to make me more comfortable in the bedroom and allow me to be more relaxed and have more fun. So for me, those texting conversations outside of events and things like that are important, but it's not for everybody. Some people, it's just, they want to go and have sex and go on their way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but that's the great thing about, it's why I like calling it E&M or ethical non-monogamy as opposed to just swinging or just polyamory is these relationships take all sorts of forms. And, for us, it's allowing the relationships to develop naturally and not putting boundaries around them. There are some boundaries, right? Like, my needs are important, that my husband's needs are important. It's kind of like our other partners. I don't want to say get what's left because, they are also important, but my husband makes sure everything is good at home first. That I've got things taken care of that that I'm not going to be struggling while he's gone and vice versa. Right. Making sure that we're both in a good place before we go and explore outside.
Yeah. Makes sense. And like my type A mind is just like, for me, I was like, I would need a structure. I'm thinking of, Danny and I have done like a want, will, won't list together for our own, relationship and sexuality and stuff. But I'm thinking in this case, like, is there a list, a guide, like something that if you and your partner are thinking of getting into a relationship outside of your own relationship, like this little check, like, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this. I'm not okay with this. Like a want, will, won't in the sense of, with another person.
I don't know of like an actual checklist, but there are, and I can share them with you after we're done, but there are a couple TikTok profiles that I love looking at. There's a couple other podcasts that I really enjoy. There's a lot of websites out there, Facebook pages. So there's different resources out there that have a lot of great information. And it's not just, sometimes it's more about what those relationships will look like instead of just, what you're allowed to do in the bedroom. How do you deal with jealousy? How do you deal with any form of discomfort? How do you deal with the hard emotions that come up? And I like these resources because they provide both of us with different opportunities to kind of reflect and approach things from a different perspective or look at things from a different way. And in terms of boundaries for us, they've changed over the years. You talked about anal. When we first started, my husband was very much, your ass is mine and no one else's, right? And we got to a point where he's like, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so we make sure that the other is okay with something we want to try. I went to an event recently where I wanted to do some impact play and, cleared it with my husband to make sure he was comfortable, but then explored it with someone else who really enjoys it. And not to say that my husband doesn't, but this person has more experience in it. And I wanted to experience it with someone else.
Yeah.
And so just having those open conversations and being willing to be open-minded and listen to each other's perspectives.
Yeah. And to piggyback off that, if you think back to the very beginning, like you said, your first time you just went and sort of played with each other in your own room, socialized the rest of the time, what conversation took place even before going to that? Like, okay, we're okay with kissing, we're okay with oral sex and no penetration. Like, was there anything like that happened?
One thing I love is most of the events that we go, so we're on the Detroit side of Michigan. Most of the events we go to are on the west side. So anytime we're going, there's like a 2.5 hour drive out and a 2.5 hour drive back. And what's really great about that, the drive can suck, but on the way out there, we talk about our expectations. We talk about what we're okay with, what we're comfortable with, people we've been talking to that we might be interested in playing with at the event. Any hesitations or concerns we have. So we have that conversation together.
Yeah.
And then on the way home, it's a chance to debrief. Sometimes those trip home suck because we've had a shitty situation the night before. There was a night where I was connecting with a guy and my husband wasn't really connecting with any of the women there. And he just wanted to go back to his room. And I said, well, do you mind if I stay and play here? And, I wasn't aware enough to notice that he really wasn't okay with it. He was just, wanted to allow me that freedom, but it ended up it hurt him a lot. And so that whole drive home the next day was talking about those feelings and understanding where they came from and how we were going to approach it going forward and having that deep conversation. There have been a lot of tears.
Oh, I can imagine.
A lot of tears, but it's all been worth it.
Yeah. And you mentioned jealousy. It's like, how do you handle jealousy when jealousy comes up?
There are many ways. There's actually a podcast episode I listened to recently that talked about, different ways for your brain, things like journaling, different mindfulness techniques and things like that, but also to making sure you have a plan for what you're going to do while they're gone. My husband's going to be, even when my husband goes away to hang out with his buddies, like knowing, okay, when I've got to have the kids by myself, let me plan something to do with them to keep them entertained. That's probably going to tire them out. So by the time we get home, they're a little bit more worn out and it's not going to be as taxing on me. And so being aware of things like that, of how can I prepare myself, or how can they prepare themselves so that those opportunities for the thoughts in our head and the jealousy to creep up kind of are minimized. Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, because jealousy is definitely an emotion that's one you have to process within yourself. Sure, other people, like it's other people's behaviors or actions that are maybe pushing the jealousy button for you, but I feel strongly like that's the thing you have to
own your emotions yourself. You have to own them. And jealousy is not necessarily a bad thing. It's how you behave and how you process it, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get rid of the jealousy completely as much as you want to try. It can still show up completely unexpectedly, but having those tools in your back pocket for when it does is really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking it a step further too, and asking like, is this actually jealousy, or is it loneliness? Is it actually a different emotion than jealousy?
There was an instance recently where he was gone, and I had actually, before he even left, the bitterness had built up because we hadn't really gotten to see each other. I was overwhelmed, and I wasn't doing a good job of communicating how I was feeling, but I wanted to give him what he was asking for. It blew up. I was a toddler. I threw a temper tantrum while he was gone. And I at least recognized that for myself. And I spent time trying to figure it out and realizing that the emotion that was actually coming up, it was very similar to heartbreak for me.
Mm-hmm.
And going, well, why? I mean, he's not leaving.
Yeah.
He's just gone for the weekend with a friend of ours.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of realizing that, like, okay, there is this fear there and we've got to talk through it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, you know, he came home and we talked through it and we talked about what can we do the next time that a situation like this comes up, so that, you know, we make sure that each other's needs are met.
Mm-hmm.
We make sure that we're both feeling in a comfortable and secure spot, that we're at a good neutral place before one of us goes out, so that it keeps the harmony and balance between us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And just to reiterate again, there's so much that goes into this. Like, it's the constant communication, the constant check-in with yourself, with your partner. It's like, it's not just, sometimes I think people, maybe when they jump into this, they're like, yeah, we're just gonna go to the sex party, right? We're not going to talk about it. You're going to do you, I do me. Like, no, there's so much that has to go into this. And just to like hit it again home, it's like, you don't start something like this if you're in a shitty place in your relationship. Like, this is not to save a marriage, like save a relationship, anything like that. There's
it's
so much
definitely going to help strengthen if you're willing to put in the work, but you've got to be willing to put in the work and you've got to be able to push past the hard stuff, because it's going to come up. But, you know, to that point of having a conversation before, whether it's they go on a date, you're going to a party together, whatever the situation is, have a conversation before about expectations. Afterwards, debrief it with each other. How did it go? How are you feeling? What came up for you? We were at an event recently where I was, you know, had just finished playing with someone. My husband was across the room, playing with another woman, and I was needing him in that moment. And I'm trying to like catch his eyes across the room, and he gets up and he starts walking towards me, and I'm like, okay, he's coming to me. And he grabs a condom and asks if I'll get off the bed so he can have sex with someone.
Oh, God.
And I was just like, oh, okay. So I got up and I went across the room and I was like, what am I feeling? I was like, okay, I'm needing some attention right now. Okay, I can sit here and let this ruin the rest of my night watching him have sex with someone, or I can go over there and I make clear what I need and enjoy myself. Let me tell you, the orgasms after I worked through that were amazing. You know, I got up, I went over, I laid on the bed and kind of looked at me and I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, yeah, I need your attention. And he's like, okay. And I looked to the woman who I had never met before and said, I need to borrow him for a minute. And she's like, okay, enjoy. And she's like, do you mind if I play with your tits? I'm like, sure. So we end up like started having a threesome. Right. And then I get what I need. And I was like, all right, you can have him back. And then I laid next to them and masturbated while they had sex.
Oh my God. Like, what a dream. Like, literally.
And had an amazing orgasm watching my husband with someone else. Because it is something I've learned turns me on. But I wouldn't have been able to enjoy it if I hadn't owned up to what I was feeling and had the confidence to ask for what I needed in that moment, and the trust that my partner was going to respond to that in the way I needed him to.
Yeah, not in a way like you're cock blocking him, right? Like I often hear that a lot with couples, like she's always getting in the way, or it's like it never ends up going like successfully. Like
and it was, you know, my entire intention was, okay, I need some dick, and then he can go back, right? And I loved that she was completely understanding, that she even engaged with us, which made the situation even better because that helped build my trust with her. I got what I needed, and then I let them have fun.
And in situations like that, did this woman, for instance, know that you two were together? Like, is there some sort of system where you know, like, who's partnered and who's not?
It depends. A lot of the times we'll have gotten to talk with people that we're going to interact with beforehand. In this situation, I don't know if it had been explicit to her or if she had just seen us interacting, because we had interacted earlier in the night. But usually in those situations, the people who are there are familiar with what's going on, are familiar with the lifestyle and kind of the rules of engagement, I would say, and are willing to go with the flow.
Yeah.
And honestly, if they're not, then I probably don't want my partner with them anyway.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah,
definitely good point. Well, this has been, I mean, incredible, like very, very helpful, very resourceful. Yeah. And speaking of resources, like, is there anything, you mentioned a few TikTok accounts that I would love to be able to link for people that are listening. Anything else? Like, how, my biggest question, I think I asked you this years ago, is like, if I want to start this, where do I even go?
Perfect question. So there are a couple different websites out there that, because I don't want to give specific to the Michigan region, because for your listeners, if you want to check out SLS, which is short for the swinging lifestyle, so SLS.com, there's also an app. There's FetLife, which covers more than just ethical non-monogamy. You can get a lot into kink with that. There's other things that can go on in FetLife, but there's a couple other sites, I think, but SLS and FetLife are the two I know most. A lot of the groups that put on events like this will post their events on these sites. SLS is focused towards swinging. So you can go on there. It's a dating website. You make a profile for you and your partner. You can meet other couples, engage with them. So that's a great way to meet other people outside of just events.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think a book that I would definitely recommend is Polysecure. Honestly, I would recommend Polysecure for anyone, whether you're in a polyamorous or monogamous relationship. The first part of it really covers attachment styles, which I think is so important for anyone in a relationship. And then it gets more into the polyamory and ethical non-monogamy, but there's a lot of great information in there, regardless of your relationship style. She just came out with a second book on it that I'm excited to check out. I don't know the name off the top of my head. And then The Ethical Slut is a very common one. I haven't read that one, but it's a very common one. I think those are the two main books I know of.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you so much, Sam. And how can people find you if they want to connect with you? And you are a lifestyle friendly coach. So anybody listening, that is, Sam's your girl for sure.
So I am a women's empowerment coach, and you can find me at the Holistic Phoenix MI on Instagram, or Holistic Phoenix MI on Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn. I don't really talk about this kind of stuff on LinkedIn, but any of those places, I do one-on-one coaching, as well as I'm looking into group coaching programs and such, and hopefully going to have some courses and stuff out there in the future too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for having me, Rachel. I'm so glad that after all these years,
finally
we finally did it. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, that was great.
Very cool.
Thank you.